Hi, this is MJ from Genshin Support Club, and welcome to the first video in my new guide series specifically for mobile players. As a streamer who plays mobile Genshin daily on Twitch, I get asked a lot of questions by other mobile players ranging anywhere from the make and model of my phone to my favorite character and team builds. When it comes to hardcore theory crafting, I will usually refer these viewers to the theory crafters I trust most, and I'll leave links to their content in the description of this video. But one question I think goes too often unasked is which characters and teams are easiest to play specifically on mobile, and how much choosing the right characters to fit the easiest mobile playstyles can impact the player experience. Before I continue, let me clarify that I know there are GigaChat mobile players out there who regularly 36-star Abyss with unshielded melt Ganyu in a minute to spare. If that's you, we stan, you're awesome, and you don't need my help. There are always going to be people who can overcome the challenges of the platform with above average or expert skill. I'm making these videos for the average mobile player who loves Genshin Impact and wants to be able to progress through the game and enjoy its incredibly cool combat system without living in constant frustration. In other words, players like me. Before we can talk about what works best on mobile, we need to take a moment to clarify what doesn't. What are the limitations of the platform, and what challenges do those present for players? Every mobile device will have its own quirks and limitations, but one challenge they all share is a lack of tactile feedback when performing attacks or switching characters. While keyboard or controller players can be sure they've pressed the button or key required to sprint or perform an attack, the mobile player's smooth phone screen provides no such assurance. And without watching each press of the thumb carefully, it's easy to press the wrong button or miss the buttons altogether. The mobile player must constantly choose whether to keep their eyes on the controls or on the enemy, neither of which is a recipe for perfection. If that wasn't difficult enough, limited real estate ensures that all these buttons, attacks, sprint, aiming mode, camera control, and switching from one character to another are so close to each other on the screen that it's basically impossible to avoid regular misclicks. Whether it's normal attacking instead of sprinting, or initiating a character's burst while trying to adjust the view, these are everyday mishaps for nearly every mobile player. On top of that, while switching from character to character by touch seems simple enough on the face of it, perhaps due to the limited screen space, only 3 characters are displayed on the side at any time, with the active character appearing only on the field. This means that every time a character is placed on the field, the remaining characters shift places on the side, so players must do the work of re-identifying which character is in each slot before clicking every time a character is rotated in or out. This is especially tricky when the small icons of the characters' heads look similar at a glance, such as with Aether and Kazuha, or Yoimiya and Jean. After almost 2 years of playing, the number of times I have rotated in the wrong character at a key moment because I couldn't keep track of all their locations on the screen is crushingly large. Mobile aiming is clunky at best and deadly at worst, leaving the average mobile player feeling frustrated by the length of time required to get a decent shot in on a stationary target, never mind one that's moving and attacking. And while aiming mode can help to keep the camera steady, it's yet another button to click in a sea of non-tactile buttons. Finally, the average mobile phone becomes too hot to function with the game's graphics settings maxed out. And while most of us are fine playing with less detail on the screen if necessary, the one setting that actually affects our damage per second is our frames per second. Most of the mobile players I know, including myself, can't play regularly at 60 FPS, which theory crafters have said can cost us almost half our damage from certain elemental reactions. While this may not be noticeable in the overworld, in timed content such as the Spiral Abyss, those lost frames can make the difference between dying on floor 12 and achieving full stars, and the rewards that come with it. So all that said, what makes an ideal character for mobile? There are a number of factors that can make a character more or less difficult to play on your phone. But before I get into them, let me clarify that if you love a character, there is always some way to make them playable for you. Whether it's a particular build to strengthen their easiest to use abilities, or building the right synergistic team around them. I'm not here to tell you to throw your favorites out the window, but if you're having trouble clearing content or you're feeling frustrated on a regular basis, seeking out characters who are especially mobile friendly might help you better enjoy the game. There are a lot of things that may factor into a character's ease of use on mobile, but for simplicity's sake, let's identify just 5 characteristics that can make a character easy to use for mobile players. Number 1. Off-field damage. We all love to have our favorite characters kicking enemy butt on the field, but while they're out there, a team full of characters whose damage can best be described as set it and forget it will simplify your gameplay and stay healthy while you focus on the field. Characters like Shincho, Fischl, Xiangling, or Yae Miko can be ideal mobile companions, applying damage alongside your on-field character and significantly increasing your DPS. And while we're accumulating layers of damage, let's move on to number 2, quick swap potential. I love to play my favorites on-field just like anyone, but since dodging can be especially difficult on mobile, there are times when it makes more sense to play a team whose abilities make it easy to move from one elemental burst to another, essentially iframing enemy attacks and allowing your damage to continue uninterrupted. A quick swap team, carefully assembled with energy management and cooldown times in mind, can help the mobile player breeze through combat that might otherwise leave us struggling to survive. Characters with short cooldowns and low-cost bursts like Venti, Ganu, Mona, and Bennett make assembling burst-heavy quick swap teams fun and easy. Of course, there will be times when nothing goes to plan, whether we've taken an unexpected hit or found ourselves in slowing waters. For those times when our rotations necessarily fall to pieces, characters whose normal rotations can be paused or interrupted without sacrificing DPS are the easiest to manage, especially in early game. Which brings us to number 3, selflessness. A lot of the game's powerhouse characters fall into the category of selfish DPS, which is to say that they rely on staying on field or building stacks to reach their full damage potential. These characters can be very satisfying to play, but if you're often unable to finish your selfish DPS's attack string, bringing out someone whose kit is more forgiving can provide some quick relief. Noelle is especially notable as a character whose burst remains active even if you switch away to shield or perform some other attack. But a number of other on-field DPS characters such as Keqing or Tighnari have kits that are simple and flexible and require very little to recover if you prematurely remove them from the field. Speaking of Tighnari, time for a quick tangent on archers. Many mobile players have come to my chat to loudly declare that they won't play bow characters. But sometimes I think that's because they got frustrated early on with mobile aiming issues and never fully investigated characters like Fischl or Venti, whose best damage is done without shooting a bow at all. Even among more conventional bow users, there's a big difference in mobile play between characters who excel at auto attacks versus those who do damage with aimed shots. Before pulling for any bow character, I recommend mobile players first research their kit and play their in-game trial to make sure the character's attack will be comfortable to use. But using an auto-attack bow character like Yoimiya, or even a character like Tighnari, whose homing arrows make for a more forgiving charged attack experience, can be fun and easy on mobile, even for those of us with known skill issues. Back to business, we've reached number 4. Resistance to interruption. The day I stopped dying to lava churls in Genshin was the day I pulled Shincho, whose water swords were suddenly protecting my precious on-field characters from being knocked off their feet every 2 seconds. Characters like Shincho or Raiden Shogun, whose bursts resist interruption, are valuable beyond measure to a mobile account, and can save lives and precious seconds in Abyss. The same effect can be achieved by putting on a shield, which is why I advocate strongly for shield characters when new mobile players ask me who I think they should build. Zhongli and Diona have the easiest to use shields in the game, and let's not forget the purest heart in Teyvat, our beloved Noelle. But less conventional shielders like Toma or C4 Yenfei can get the job done too. And if you're running double Geo, even Albedo's crystallized shields can be strong enough to save you in a crucial moment. Some players will cry, "Just get good," and insist that using shields is a DPS loss. But if you're spending all your time dodging or dying on the field, it's a DPS saver as far as I'm concerned. If this sounds like you, ignore the haters and get yourself a shield. You won't regret it. And on a similar note, number 5, crowd control. Most people will immediately think of animal powerhouses like Sucrose, Venti, and Kazuha when they hear the words crowd control, and for good reason. These characters will bundle up and or stagger your enemies with extreme efficiency, and I recommend trying to acquire and build at least 2 of these for your account if you want to fight the Abyss. But we also need a shout out to freeze comps, which can serve you just as well against the right enemies. Building teams around cryo characters like Ganyu, Ayaka, Rosaria, or my personal main, Kaya, will allow you to keep your enemies frozen and slice through them like butter. Having a strong hydro applier like Shincho, Yelan, or Kokomi is obviously a necessity as well. Not every enemy can be frozen, of course, and your freeze comp won't be viable against large groups of cryo enemies either, just as some large enemies aren't susceptible to animal grouping. But having some strong crowd control units ready to go on your mobile account can be a huge help in clearing some of the hardest content in the game. There are many more factors that can make a character easier or not on mobile, including seemingly innocuous traits like height or the speed of their weapon type, and I'll address these in future videos in the series, along with the characters who may benefit most from these traits. But the purpose of this video is to give mobile players an overview of what types of characters may ease their current woes and help them to plan for the future of their account. Please remember that the advice I'm giving comes from my personal experience as a mobile player and is just one player's opinion. If my advice seems unhelpful, please feel free to disregard it. But if you've been struggling to play the game on your mobile device, perhaps something I've said can give you a sense of direction. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to my channel to keep up with future content. If you'd like to ask more questions or watch me play on my own mobile account, I stream Genshin Impact every day at twitch.tv/Genshin Support Club. Good luck, mobile players, and see you next time.